Have you ever wondered if the politicians that govern your country or region are narcissistic? Today we're diving into the world of political narcissism, where ego meets power and self-love becomes a full-time occupation. We will explore all the political masters of self-promotion, the walking, talking monuments to personal ambition. We're counting down the 8 most narcissistic political figures who've turned self-importance into an art form. Let us know who you think should be at the top and if you agree with our pick, and let's get started. Number 8. Vladimir Putin, President of Russia. Putin doesn't just have narcissistic tendencies, he's basically narcissism personified as a geopolitical force. This is a man who has literally constructed an entire national mythology around his own perceived strength and masculinity. Shirtless horseback rides, carefully staged photo ops showing his martial arts skills, propaganda that portrays him as an almost superhuman figure, Putin's entire political persona is a monument to self-love. What makes Putin truly fascinating is how his narcissism extends beyond personal image into national policy. He wants to be seen as the ultimate strongman, the savior of Russian pride. Every military action, every political maneuver may ultimately be about proving his own superiority rather than the benefit of Russia and its people. His cult of personality isn't just a side effect of his leadership, it's the entire point. Putin has transformed narcissism into a form of political control. By creating this image of himself as an invincible, hypermasculine leader, he's able to maintain a grip on power that goes beyond traditional political mechanisms. The genius of Putin's narcissism is how calculated it is. Nothing is accidental. Every image, every statement is designed to reinforce a specific narrative about his own strength, his own importance, his own irreplaceability. And according to many psychological experts, Putin's narcissism is so ubiquitous that even starting conflicts and global wars where millions get killed may not be a far-fetched idea if it further fuels his personal ambition. Number 7. Justin Trudeau, former Prime Minister of Canada. Canada's Prime Minister has turned political narcissism into a carefully curated performance art. His every photo op is a meticulously planned showcase of his perceived perfection, whether he's doing yoga poses, wearing elaborate cultural costumes, or dramatically sweeping his perfectly styled hair out of his eyes. What makes Trudeau fascinating is how his narcissism is wrapped in a veneer of progressive charm. Those perfectly timed Instagram-ready moments aren't accidents, they're calculated performances designed to project an image of absolute political coolness. His endless costume changes during international trips are a further testament to his potential narcissism. Each outfit is a statement, each photo a carefully constructed narrative of Trudeau as the ultimate modern politician. He wants to be seen leading, to be admired, to be the hero of his own political movie. His narcissism isn't aggressive, it's smooth, calculated, image-conscious. Every moment is an opportunity to brand himself as the most photogenic, most woke, most perfect leader possible. It's political narcissism with a smile and perfectly maintained eyebrows. Number 6. Hillary Clinton, former US Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton's narcissism is a more subtle, calculated, and maybe even callous version. The narcissism of someone who believes so completely in her own potential that she's willing to reshape entire political landscapes to prove her point, and even start wars if necessary. She doesn't just want to be a politician, she wants to be a historic figure. Her narcissism is wrapped in a narrative of breaking barriers. She didn't just want to win, she wanted to be seen as transformative, as someone who could change the entire political game. Each speech, each appearance was a carefully managed performance designed to project competence, strength, and ruthless execution. The complexity of Clinton's narcissism is how it intersects with genuine political ambition. She genuinely believed in her own potential to create change, and many believe that made her a truly effective politician and statesman, even to the point of being perceived as cruel. Her laughter, which many have described as evil and sinister, may be the biggest red flag pointing to her narcissism. Number 5. Emmanuel Macron, President of France. Macron is political narcissism disguised as intellectual sophistication. France's youngest president has turned self-importance into a form of national leadership, presenting himself as this ultra-modern, almost messianic political figure who will single-handedly transform French society. He's constructed an entire political persona around being uniquely exceptional. He wants to be seen as a transformative figure, someone above traditional political boundaries. His entire political brand is about presenting himself as this hyper-intelligent, hyper-capable leader who is fundamentally different from traditional politicians. Remember his famous statement about wanting to be Jupiter-like in his presidency? That's not just a metaphor, it's a direct declaration of his own perceived superiority. He sees himself as something above traditional political mechanics, a leader who can reshape entire national conversations through sheer force of personality. His narcissism is intellectual and performative. Every speech, every international appearance is designed to project an image of France as a modern, progressive nation, with Macron as its ultimate embodiment. Number 4. Boris Johnson, former UK Prime Minister. Boris Johnson's chaotic narcissism was wrapped in a deliberately dishevelled package. His entire political persona was a performance, a carefully constructed character that seemed accidentally brilliant but was actually a highly calculated form of self-promotion. Johnson was captivating because of how he turned his own perceived ridiculousness into a political strength. His wild hair, his seemingly bumbling persona, these weren't accidents. They were deliberate strategies designed to make him seem uniquely charming, uniquely different from traditional politicians. Brexit wasn't just a political movement for Johnson, it was a personal performance, an opportunity to position himself as this maverick leader who could reshape national destiny. His narcissism is so complete that it becomes almost charming. He doesn't just love himself, he performs self-love as a form of political entertainment. He wants to be seen as this larger-than-life character who is fundamentally more interesting than anyone else in the room. Number 3. Aleksandar Vučić, President of Serbia. Aleksandar Vučić is a prime example of political shape-shifting, narcissism disguised as national leadership. Serbia's long-serving president has transformed self-importance into a political art form, constantly reinventing himself while maintaining an iron grip on power. Vučić has an uncanny chameleon-like ability to rebrand himself while never losing sight of his ultimate goal, total political dominance. He's moved from ultranationalist roots to a supposedly progressive European-oriented leader, but the constant remains the same, Aleksandar Vučić at the center of everything. His media control is perhaps the most stunning manifestation of his narcissism. Serbian media has essentially become his personal PR machine, with newspapers, television stations, and online platforms carefully curating an image of Vučić as the ultimate savior of Serbia. It's a carefully constructed mythology of personal importance. He's transformed political leadership into a one-man show, where every narrative, every policy ultimately circles back to him. The genius of Vučić narcissism is how comprehensive it is. He's controlling the narrative the entire time, literally rewriting the entire political landscape of Serbia to match his personal vision. Opposition is systematically marginalized, media is carefully controlled, and the entire political system becomes a reflection of his own perceived importance. His international performances are equally calculated. On the global stage, he presents himself as a sophisticated, European-oriented leader, while domestically maintaining an authoritarian grip that would make old-school dictators proud. What truly sets Vučić apart is how he's normalized his own excessive self-importance. In Serbia, his omnipresence has become so complete that challenging his leadership seems almost impossible. Number 2. Donald Trump, US President. A list of narcissistic politicians could never be complete without Donald Trump, and naturally, he must be near the top of it. Donald Trump is not just a political narcissist, he's likely one of the biggest narcissists of the last few decades in general. Every single moment of his political career has been a performance of extreme self-love, a continuous declaration of his own supposed greatness. "Nobody knows more about X than me" wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a fundamental philosophy. Everything Trump does is the biggest, greatest, the best. What makes Trump fascinating is how he turned narcissism into a political movement. His entire approach to politics was about personal branding, about creating a mythology of Trump as this ultimate dealmaker, this superhuman businessman turned politician. Every rally, every tweet was ultimately about one thing: Donald Trump. His narcissism was so complete that it became its own form of political communication. Traditional political norms meant nothing. Every interaction was ultimately about proving his own superiority, about creating a narrative where he was always the hero, always the winner. The genius of Trump's narcissism was how transparent yet effective it was. He didn't try to hide his self-love, he celebrated it, turned it into a selling point. His supporters didn't just tolerate his ego, they were drawn to its absolute, unapologetic nature, while those who opposed him often had no effective tools to counter his rise. Number 1. Kim Jong-un, Supreme Leader of North Korea. Calling Kim Jong-un a dictator is an understatement. His narcissism taken to its most extreme, terrifying conclusion. This is a leader who has transformed an entire nation into a personal shrine to his own perceived greatness. North Korean propaganda doesn't just praise Kim, it portrays him as essentially a godlike figure, capable of superhuman feats. What makes Kim's narcissism so horrifying is how systemic it is. He is a national project of self-worship. Official narratives claim he was a child prodigy who could drive at age 3, who wrote multiple operas, who is a global political genius. The entire state machinery is designed to reinforce his perceived perfection. Every aspect of North Korean culture is ultimately about maintaining Kim's image. Haircuts are regulated to match his style. Portraits are mandatory in every home. Criticism is not just discouraged, it's essentially impossible. His narcissism isn't just a personality trait, it's a form of total social control. The most chilling aspect of Kim's narcissism is how complete it is. This isn't just about wanting to look good, this is about creating an entire reality where he is literally the center of everything. Out of all the political leaders today, it's likely that Kim Jong-un is the most narcissistic one. His narcissism may be so big that we may all even suffer a nuclear war because of it. What do you think of this list? Did we get it right? Have we left out some famous narcissistic politician? Or maybe someone else should be at the top? Let us know in the comments, we love hearing from you. If you know someone else who might like this video, share it with them. We recommend our video on the biggest narcissists in history next.